God forbid someone decides to change a term in the PSA, it is like someone just pressed the nuclear button. We just broke ground on 372 doors in Spring, Texas. Everybody's talking about tariffs and how they're potentially affecting project costs. So we're coming in, as of today, about $2 million under budget. And that's $2 million under our low budget. The likelihood of you getting your first LOI selected is pretty slim. If you're selected the first time, you probably overbid on the property or offering to overbid on the property. My advice when we have clients, either you're going to listen to what we tell you guys to do with respect to the SEC, with respect to advertising and marketing, or we're not going to represent you.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I have a real treat for you guys today. Okay, I have a great friend who's also my real estate and SEC and contracts attorney here today, and we've never done an interview because he's usually in Dallas, but I've got my Warrior event this weekend, and he always speaks at my events. And so we're like, hey, or I was like, hey, it's about damn time we get you on the podcast. So his name's Merrill Kaliser with Kaliser & Associates, and he and I give each other a lot of shit, which we said we were going to try not to do on this podcast, but we have a lot of fun, candidly. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Rod.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So why don't you, you're not a typical real estate attorney. I mean, you're in 9,000 plus units, and you're a commercial real estate investor and
Right.
developer and everything else. So why don't you give a little background, though? I know there's quite a background.
Sure. So actually, I'm a Southern boy. I'm from Georgia, for those of you that don't know me. Born in Augusta, Georgia, moved to Texas in 72. My dad was in the military, and stayed in Dallas off and on ever since 1972, so I consider myself a Texan. Law school, went to WashU, enjoyed the Midwest, came back to Dallas and started practicing corporate bankruptcy. That was very exciting. First little case was a small little oil company called Enron. For
those of you that are young that don't know what that is, that was a how many billion-dollar bankruptcy?
It was the largest bankruptcy case ever filed.
Ever in history, yeah.
Uber
Okay.
billions.
Right.
And then worked a little bit on some of the blockbuster bankruptcies and some other bankruptcies. And then ultimately got into representing some clients that were building multifamily. And it was very interesting. We would help them when there were financial issues, and pre-bankruptcy, help them work it out. They would remove a GP and step in and finish the projects. Liked it. Created my own firm and created a real estate and SEC kind of boutique law firm in North Texas, and hired two great lawyers. They'll actually be at your event. They're coming in this afternoon. Yeah, they're very excited. They've never been.
That's awesome.
So I need help.
Yeah,
everybody that shows up, you got a huge crowd.
Right.
But yeah, so I've been doing that for 17 years and got into commercial real estate. Did residential like everybody did back in 2010,
In a big way,
2011.
though. Talk about that.
Yeah, we did a few. Partnered with some hedge funds, had a couple good partners, and we acquired about 1,300 homes in DFW in Houston in 2011 to 2012. It wasn't our money, it was their money, but we acquired them, created some software that gave us a little bit of an edge, and then we renovated them, property managed them, which was a whole nother experience. Not a big fan of being my own property manager, but we did it. And that was sold to another fund. And then we kind of did a rinse and repeat with two very large funds in the U.S. and expanded to Indianapolis, St. Louis, Kansas City, and San Antonio. And then kind of got tired of doing that with large PE firms. It was not easy. Yeah, and it's never good enough. And then my wife talked to me one day and said, why aren't you doing multifamily like all your clients are? And I argued with her, as I normally do, and then she was right.
She normally is.
As she is, and she might be in here, I don't know,
yeah.
Staring at me.
Right.
But we got into multifamily 2019, and then had the little bug that came around and created some opportunities, the bug meaning COVID.
Right.
And since then, with partners, I don't own 100% of anything,
Right,
so I don't like to say they're mine, but I'm a GP and an investor in. It's about 7,700 doors. We've sold some.
Okay.
And then we have some Airbnb, like a lot of people do, some rental properties.
Real nice stuff on the lake, if I recall.
It is. It is when the lake is up.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the great thing about Airbnbs. The city of Fort Worth has decided that they were going to use the water for that lake, which is interesting because it is 60 miles east of Dallas, which means you have to go across Dallas to get to Fort Worth. And somehow Fort Worth has a pipeline that sucks water out of this.
Oh, boy.
So we've had a lot of good rain, so I'm very excited about this season. Our software helps us out, too, because we measure the depth every morning through we don't measure
kidding.
it, but we take it.
Well, you've got like software developers on your team, right?
We do.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, so we rent boats.
Okay.
We rent pontoon boats and jet skis. The crazy thing is a pontoon boat for a day is twice as much as renting the 4-bedroom, 3-bath house on the water.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's a big part of other income.
So it's a profit center for you. Okay.
It is when the water's up.
Right.
When the water's down, then we have nice grass where the boat dock is.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But and then we do some express car washes.
Oh, that's right. You're in car washes now too. Yeah, and you're bringing some stuff out of the ground too, right?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's actually a big one.
Right.
So yeah, we just broke ground on 372 doors in Spring, Texas.
Right.
And this will be interesting. We may talk about this this weekend, but everybody's talking about tariffs and how they're potentially affecting project costs.
Right.
So we broke ground 60 days ago. We've poured slab on 4 buildings already, and we've got 2 towers up already built for the elevator shafts. These are 4-story garden style.
Right.
We're coming in as of today about $2 million under budget, and that's $2 million under our low budget. And this is locking things in at today's pricing. And so this fear of tariffs dramatically affecting new construction, a lot of it seems to be just kind of made up in the media. There will be some small price increases if they stay, but the labor is coming in significantly less because construction has been at a halt in a lot of areas, standstill in a lot of areas, especially in Texas, because there was a lot of growth, and then interest rates came in, everybody stopped. Well, we're just kind of pushing through. Not easy.
Right.
We're pushing through, and so the GCs...
Well, you're in a catbird seat because these subs don't have any work.
Exactly. So the GCs just want to get them paid.
Oh, yeah.
And so the markups aren't as high, not nearly as high as they were in the past. So
just to interrupt. So the GCs want to get them paid because they don't want to lose their quality subs.
100%.
See, guys, and this is very, very common. You know, when there's dry spells, the last thing in the world a general contractor wants is to lose their subcontractors because they live or die by them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, wow, good for you. Okay.
So well, it's not done. We still have 22 months left.
Yeah.
But we're excited.
I thought you had more than one.
Well, I only got to one.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Sorry.
We got another one. And interesting, that one's through HUD financing.
Oh, that's cool.
And a lot of people think HUD financing is, you're doing low-income housing. Mm-hmm. No, this has got nothing to do with low income. HUD actually provides financing for certain development projects. Not easy.
Let me interject something. Guys, we never talk about HUD financing because it's not easy. It typically takes 6 months to a year to get, number one. But it is the best financing by far. Explain why.
So I wish it took 6 to 12 months. This one took 13.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
And keep in mind, we pivoted. We were already on the path for conventional financing, and the lenders just went pencils down. This was about 2 years ago. So then we pivoted to HUD. You have to qualify for HUD. Property's got to be in a certain location, got to have really good projections for the next 3 or 4 years on inventory. So if the projections don't look like 3 to 4 times the shortage of inventory.
Need projections?
Yeah,
right.
You can't go there.
Oh, no.
We're not even talking about rents. Then they go into rent. So
wow.
You go through different studies that you pay for, different surveys. We've done blast radius surveys because we have gas lines within 100 yards of the property.
Wow.
Big one in Houston that hasn't been used for 50 years.
Wow.
We still have to provide a shield in case it is ever used.
Oh my God! Yeah, this is an example of government overreach and waste of. I mean, they're massively cutting HUD. I mean, the payroll on HUD. I mean, the human resources. A lot of them are out the windows. It's going to be even worse. But it's still talk about the quality of the financing.
Yeah. So when it was all said and done, I can say this because I've posted about it. We ended up getting. It's almost embarrassing because I don't think a 6.09% loan is a great rate. It's a
Right.
great rate right now.
Yeah.
I was representing clients that were getting 3%
Right.
with HUD 3 years ago, but we locked in at 6.09%,
Okay.
40 years.
40 years.
40 years.
Holy shit. I thought it was 35 was
Yes.
the max. 40 years.
40 years.
Wow.
40-year
Guys,
term,
the interest
40-year
rate isn't as relevant when you add an
Right.
extra freaking 10 years on the back end
Right.
for amortization.
Right, it's like a 4.25.
Wow.
So we got 40 years now. There's a 10-year step down.
Oh yeah. So what that means, guys, is there's a 10-year prepayment penalty where the prepayment steps down over a 10-year period, and it is significant. So he's not going to be selling or refinancing that thing for 10 years.
We are, but that's okay.
Oh, you are?
Yes, because we're in at a very low basis. And so now,
You're going to pay
Well-
the step down?
well,
Wow.
we'll see what the market is like
Okay.
when we stabilize.
Okay.
But we're at a very good price point.
Yeah.
A very, very good price point.
Okay.
Lower than we could have ever imagined. Not only were those just those terms, we have 87% loan to cost.
Okay, that's the other big thing, guys. I want you to rehear what he just said. They were able to borrow 87% of the entire project cost, purchase price, cost in the deal, which is unheard of. I mean, unheard of. So this is why HUD is fantastic. It's just very hard to get, very cumbersome, very, a lot of reporting you have to do after the fact as well,
It
correct?
gets even better.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have that step down. But what's interesting with HUD is, so right now we're at 6.09%.
Right.
We have a one-time opportunity to lock in at a different rate after construction is completed. So let's say for whatever reason,
The rates come down?
the 10 years drop, because HUD follows the 10-year.
Right.
So let's say the 10-year is dropped down to 3% or 2%. We can lock in. The flip side to that, and this is why you got to know everything ahead of time, the flip side of that is when you lock in, you're paying your prepay, your penalty.
Oh.
So you're locking
interesting.
in, and that gets added to your basis. So it's a numbers game.
Okay.
You've got to see if it's worth it for you to lock in a lower rate.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So it's
Interesting.
only $8,500 to lock in, but it could cost us $2.5 million
Wow.
in additional loan amount because they would finance back in that prepay.
Interesting. Yeah, so guys, we've never talked about this, which is why I'm allowing him to go into a little more detail on HUD financing. And I've never really talked about it because most of the people on the show are new or newer, except my students. They have a lot of deals. And I think there's some HUD stuff being done by a couple of my warriors as well, but it's not common, but it's fantastic debt. So you've got another one coming out of the ground too, right?
Yeah, we have actually two others.
Two others.
But we went HUD on the second one.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, we haven't closed on it yet. We're waiting.
Okay.
That HUD project, the terms aren't as good.
I see.
It's on a project by project basis.
Oh, interesting.
And it has a retail component to it, which made HUD a little more complicated.
I see.
So by waiting a little bit, just in the last month and a half, 2 months, conventional lenders are opening up again.
Okay.
And so we're getting terms that are less egregious than HUD, meaning there's no 10-year prepay.
Got it.
The challenge is obviously equity,
Right.
because I'm not going to get
raising money.
Yeah, not going to get 87% loan to
Right.
cost.
Oh,
You're going
yeah.
to get
Oh.
65.
And that's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah,
Well, with
'cause-
the project down in Houston was great. We didn't have to do anything. There are family offices and equity groups that essentially troll all of the people that are approved
Doing
by
HUD?
224D, or I think that's the statute.
Right.
And so they came in with 90%.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Because
so
they
we-
know how meticulous
Oh,
HUD is.
well, you have
and-
reserves
or
on top of
anal might be the
reserves.
word, and,
Yes.
and so they know how incredibly conservative that those deals are.
And when you finish construction, there's no personal guarantee,
Oh wow!
just a completion guarantee. So
That's it.
the rest of the loan is non-recourse.
Wow.
After construction, and you have so many required reserves, and then we have a line of credit on top of that we can tap if we need to. That's
Wow.
required. So we would have to have a nuclear
Right.
fallout
To
and then,
lose the deal.
Yeah, then the housing's not the worst of my issues.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's shift gears here
Yeah.
for a minute. So let's talk a little bit about your practice. I know that, I've used you for SEC work. And talk about what all you do, and because it's you do every piece of what needs to be done in the multifamily, well, really in any asset class space,
Sure.
in the commercial real estate space. And my warriors are now doing every asset class. I mean, we've got I think we're pushing 270,000 units of multifamily under my tutelage, which I'm incredibly proud of. But we've got a ton of senior housing happening right now. I'm raising money for a senior housing project starting next week.
I know.
You know?
I know.
You know all about it? Yeah. So, and then, a lot of student housing, thousands and thousands of self-storage units, larger storage units, mobile home parks, hotel to multifamily conversions, mixed use, industrial flex space. I mean, warriors are doing all of it
They're
now.
developing too. You've
And
got several that are
yeah.
developing right now.
Right. So, and by the way, most of them use Merrill because, he takes really good care of my warriors. So talk about what all is involved in a real estate transaction so people understand why they need you.
Sure. Well, from the get-go, you're going to find an opportunity, or someone's going to bring you an opportunity.
Right.
You're going to do some sort of analysis on it. You're not going to do a deep dive most likely, but you're going to do some sort of analysis, a back of the napkin analysis, depending on your expertise level. But once you're ready to make an offer or submit a term sheet, you're either going to go through your broker or a lawyer or both. And that's kind of where we get involved. Typically, our clients or people that have talked to us in the past, we tell them, send us your term sheet before you send it out. Kind of a free look. Technically, I can't give you legal advice on a free look, but we'll mark it up to the extent you're missing some terms now that you can add or not add. It's always dictated by where the market is.
This is the loan term sheet we're talking about.
No, this is the term sheet to make an offer on the actual
LOI.
asset. Yeah, the LOI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I use those terms.
Okay, sorry. It's the letter of
interchangeably.
intent, guys. In Merrill is not free, okay? And I will. And when I teach my boot camps, one of the big things I tell you is you always use an attorney to write the contract or to review the contract. And again, Merrill and attorneys are not free, so what's used is a letter of intent. It's called an LOI, and it spells out the major deal points on a deal. So you negotiate that, you sign that, and then you let the attorneys fight it out over the purchase and sale agreement called the PSA. And by the way, in this business, you got to learn the acronyms too, and that's so the LOI and PSA. Please continue.
Sure. So your letter of intent is the most binding, non-binding piece of paper that you will ever see. It says non-binding all over it.
Right.
God forbid someone decides to change a term in the PSA. It is like someone just pressed the nuclear button.
Right.
So as we tell clients or potential clients, it's non-binding, but these need to be the terms that you're agreeable to. Once it's signed, you're going to go to a PSA, purchase and sale agreement. So we typically don't charge clients or non-clients to review an LOI.
Oh, that's nice.
Because you're going to submit a bunch.
Right.
The likelihood of you getting your first LOI selected is pretty slim. If you're selected the first time, you probably overbid on the property.
Yeah.
Or offering to overbid on the
Good
property.
point.
But it also helps generate a relationship with non-clients. So you go LOI. Once the LOI is accepted, then you do a PSA, purchase and sale agreement. That's typically between 40 and 50 pages long. Very detailed documentation.
Right.
I wish clients read every single item in it, but they just don't.
That's why you're there.
So we point out all the gotchas, things that you wouldn't even think about, like you're buying a multifamily, and what happens if there are 40 vacants instead of 20 vacants right now? How is that accounted for?
Right.
Part of it is going through due diligence. You're going to have a long due diligence period, 60 days typically, maybe 90 if it's a quick sale. You have 30.
Right.
But you're going to be very specific in the PSA on what type of due diligence you expect the seller to give to you. And also,
you mean the documentation?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what you do, guys, is when you do your due diligence, you request documentation from the seller through the broker, if there's a broker. And we're talking about rent rolls, P&Ls, any inspection reports, anything they have on the property,
insurance claims,
you name it, the whole litany of things. You get that list, by the way, at my boot camp. My warriors have it as well. But you want to ask for everything basically, and the due diligence doesn't start until you have all that stuff. So yeah,
we make sure, at least in our PSAs, not only does it doesn't start to have every single piece.
Oh wow!
Unless the purchaser, who can be our clients. Sometimes we represent
Right.
the seller. Sometimes,
Right.
occasionally we represent both if
Okay.
we know both parties and they agree to do a waiver of conflict.
Right.
But that's only on very special occasions where we
Right.
know everybody can play
Right.
well in the sandbox.
Right.
It's very important that they get all the due diligence, because you can't really talk to a lender unless you know exactly what's going on.
That's right.
They're going to talk to a lender ahead of time just to get an idea of what's out there. So we go through the PSA, negotiate the PSA. Once the PSA is signed, then the clock ticks. Now you start your due diligence. Occasionally you negotiate a free look period for 7 to 10 days.
Well,
but
back
you're not
in the
gonna
day
get,
when deals were flying through so fast, that was about the only way to protect yourself, is to do a free look up front and have your earnest money go hard or non-refundable almost
Right.
immediately. And so, that was the strategy. You do an LOI, you negotiate it. Once it was signed, you get a free look. And while the PSA was being negotiated, you'd go in there and pretty much do a full-blown due diligence, because once the contract was signed, your money was non-refundable or hard.
it
but
is
that's
rare.
not the case anymore.
Right. I was
Yeah.
going to say it's rare that you
Very
put
rare
non-refundable
now.
money
Right.
up right now.
Right.
That will change.
Yeah.
But right now it's rare. So you're going through that, then you're going to go and start negotiating with a lender or talk to a lender about various terms.
Right.
What a lot of people don't realize is the lender's now going to do due diligence on you.
Sure.
So one, they need the due diligence on the property, and two, they do the due diligence on the borrower.
Right.
The borrower could be 1, 2, or 3, hopefully not more than 3 or 4.
Right.
We talked about that in
Right.
the past. You don't want to have too many GPs in a deal.
Well, KPs, we call them key principals in my
KPs.
sphere. Yeah,
Yes.
but they're the people. They're the loan guarantors. They're the people that sign on the debt. There's GPs, general partners, that orchestrate the thing, put it together. But then you'll have, a small number of people that actually sign on the loan, the KPs. Okay.
Agreed. So we help with negotiating the loan docs. We're going to review the loan docs, make changes to the loan docs.
Let me interject. By the way, guys, these loan docs are very detailed
Yes.
and very complex, and in some cases very onerous. Okay, and so it is critical that you have an attorney review those as well. They are contracts as well.
There is not really a non-recourse set of loan docs. The bad boy, bad
Let
girl.
me explain. If you haven't heard, if you don't know what non-recourse means, there's recourse. If the full recourse is if they foreclose, they can come after you if there's a deficiency judgment after the property sold in foreclosure. Ask me how I know. Okay, and then non-recourse means when they foreclose, all they take is the property. But some of the clauses in the loan documents can make a loan go full recourse if you miss some detail in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So in just to clarify even more, recourse is personal guarantees, personal liability.
There you go.
So you have non-recourse, but with what are called bad boy, bad
Right.
girl guarantees.
Right.
So basically that's a recourse loan.
Right.
Because you get to a point where you're hoping the loan is not non-recourse, you've already triggered your bad boy, bad girl guarantees, which makes it, for the most part, a full recourse loan.
And there's a lot of that happening right now, guys. I've been talking about this. There's a ton of property being sold for the debt right now, and it's not even penciling out, meaning it doesn't even make sense because the interest rates are so high, and it's called debt plus fees. So lenders haven't been taking haircuts too much yet. Their catchphrase is extend and pretend, but that's going to change. At some point it has to, and so
Right.
yeah.
And every lender, you and I have talked about this.
Right.
Probably 65% of our work right now
Yeah.
is loan workouts
Is
and loan modifications.
Loans in trouble. Yeah.
Right, and it goes the gamut. Some just say, "I don't care. I'm going to foreclose."
Right.
Others are working. I just saw a term sheet that really blew me away from the lender, a big lender, who has not acted this way on other deals, is doing a forbearance of interest payments for over a year.
Okay.
They're granting forbearance till May of 2026 and an option to extend to 2027. They like the property.
Okay.
They understand where it is. The GPs have to put $500,000 in to just have an interest reserve. It's a $27 million loan. And very pleasantly shocked that this lender took that position.
Yeah. Well, so forbearance is you're going to pay it, but you don't have to
Right.
pay it right now.
Right. It's gonna be added to your
It gets
closing.
added onto the loan. Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys are seeing the importance of a good contracts attorney, and I want to share something with you. So about 20 years ago, I was renting about 800 houses, many of them with an option to buy. And I got accused of not allowing my renters to buy. And in fact, I got slammed in a newspaper at the time. And so I was renting these houses with an option to buy, and people paid $2,000 or $3,000 for the privilege of that option. And if they didn't pay their rent, they got evicted. Hello. And if they got evicted, they didn't get their $2,000 or $3,000 back. The article said something like real estate mogul steals family's home ownership dreams. It had a smiling family of 4 on the cover. Failed to mention they were $5,600 behind in rent.
Right.
It was a total hit piece with all just completely filled with bullshit. But we all know about fake news these days and how much we see as complete BS. But I got to experience it firsthand. So the article said I'd only sold about 12 houses on this rent-to-own program. I actually sold 157 of them, but I was holding properties in land trusts at the time, which was this strategy you use to have anonymity and have asset protection and all that. And I had some ex-partners that tried to discredit me that the reporter found in my divorce paperwork where my ex and I were fighting. It was the largest divorce, I believe, at the time, by attorney's fees at this time back in 2000, but they so they were trying to discredit me in the divorce proceedings, and this reporter found a couple partners and they trashed me, but the partners ended up apologizing in writing that they had failed to communicate with me. Everything in the article was bullshit, and it was all debunked, but it wasn't a fun time for me.
Sure.
So the state attorney general at the time was running for governor, and he opens up an investigation on me because they teach him to do that, to pick a high-profile article or case and make yourself look good like you're tough on crime and all that. And they literally spent 2 years crawling up every orifice in my body, and looking at all my contracts. And they were completely satisfied with how I did business. Didn't have me change anything in how I did business. It was dropped. I was completely exonerated, but it wasn't a fun time to go through that. That's why I brought this up, because I was completely exonerated after 2 years, and they didn't have me change anything because the contract was so well written.
Right.
And I'm talking about the importance of having a great contracts attorney. In fact, the contract said that the deposits were non-refundable, I think in like 18 places and large type and everything else. But again, that's the importance of having a good attorney to help you with your contracts. Again, everything in the article was bullshit, and I was completely exonerated, but it's no fun when you go through an investigation like that. The point is, get a great contracts attorney, and attorneys have a stigma, greedy, blood-sucking, you
hurtful.
especially, but
So
no, I'm
hurtful.
kidding. I just want to flag this for you guys because I will tell you, take the time to memorialize everything. Our business is a partnership business as well. And I've had some failed partnerships, like the 2 I just mentioned. It was because of a lack of communication every single time. These guys, I couldn't reach them. They wouldn't return my calls. But the point is, you want to write everything down. In fact, one of the things that I have in my free book section at Rod's Links is the questions you should ask before you get into a partnership. It's a free book because, you get caught up in the emotion of stuff and you want to ask all the hard questions and document everything. Like you talk about, when you get into a general partnership, creating a memorandum of understanding, documenting who's doing what and the different roles and what the splits are so there's no animosity. And guys, I will tell you, it always comes back to what's written down. So just wanted to flag that.
Well, just to touch on the contract stuff.
Right.
So we didn't talk about it, but the other aspect of what we do with clients is all of the SEC work, which is probably your largest contract.
Sure.
And the contract that gets you, if not done properly, in the most trouble.
Yeah.
Civil and criminal.
Right.
And when you have a market that's fluctuating like it is now, and you have
nice way to put it. And,
I am.
And the SEC makes examples of people
they
when
make
this stuff
examples,
happens.
and you have investors that probably were not sophisticated enough to make the decisions, even though they were qualified under the SEC. They go in and they will find, I'm going to argue, a subpar lawyer that will go and try to tear through these documents to find some gotcha. And these are 60-page documents that are coupled with presentations that are done online and emails that go out talking about these opportunities. And so our job as, SEC lawyers and representing syndicators is to make sure that our clients don't get themselves into trouble.
Right.
You can't force them not to do things, but we warn them. You know how I am. I tell everybody, if you do this,
Every
you're going to
time
jail.
you're on stage, you bring this up, and like I said, the SEC is complaint driven, and they're getting complaints now because their deal's going south, and there'll be some people in the paper that they make examples out of and could get ugly.
They already are.
Oh, they already are.
They already are. And I mean, my advice when we have clients, either you're going to listen to what we tell you guys to do with respect to the SEC, with respect to advertising and marketing,
right,
or we're not going to represent you.
Well, good.
And that's fine. And we've terminated clients.
Have you? Wow.
Yeah, because they also look at the law firm. And because the typical client may say, well, that's what my lawyer said. And even as a lawyer, you've got to document your correspondence with clients. Sure. But it is...
You mean the SEC will look at your law firm is what you meant.
Yes.
Yeah, now got it.
Yeah.
I didn't track that for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, and
okay.
So it's not just the SEC that people need to be aware of. Every state has their own securities board.
Right.
And so if the SEC jumps in, that's one thing. Sometimes the lawyer will just file a complaint with the state board, which typically follows the SEC rules, but they've got their own set of penalties.
Wow.
And so all of this can be avoided if you just
do it right.
Do it right. Hire the right partners to do it. Make sure you've got a CPA also.
And you've got
on
great
hand.
Legal representation, which is, I've really never had an attorney on the show that I can recall, and I highly recommend Merrill. By the way, it's kaliserlaw.com.
Yes, sir.
KALISER law.com. Let him know that you saw him on the podcast if you get his help. I don't typically recommend people. Highly recommend him. And, they've done a great job for me. And that's why he speaks at every one of my events, the virtual events, the live events, and everything else. And these Warrior events that's this weekend, tomorrow. We've got several hundred of my Warrior students that are going to be here, and he's doing 2 presentations. One of the things, one of the big things we have to do is protect my warriors. And so we're talking about, mitigating problems and things that they might be dealing with. And, I think out of 270,000 units, I think we've only lost 1 deal so far. And we've got a couple that are struggling. I've even got some that are struggling, but, I'm really proud of that, and hopefully it'll remain that way. But, these are crazy times, with the interest rates as high as they are, adjustable rate debt, the payroll for you in Dallas for new construction is down, but payroll for existing apartments is way up.
It's crazy.
And taxes are up, and insurance is up, and it's killing people, myself included.
Me too.
I mean, you too. Yeah, we're gasping for air, and so, hopefully things will turn. Hopefully, to stay in recent news, I forgot what department it was, tried to shut down Trump's tariffs. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be freaking kidding me.
Right.
Jesus, these politically driven morons, because, people are like, oh, the tariffs are going to ruin us. No, he's negotiating, for Christ's sake, you dumbass. And I mean, he's playing chess, not checkers.
It did get appealed.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Thank God. Let's hope the Supreme Court steps in and shuts that shit down, because, I mean, that's the best thing in the world for this country. And if they shut that down, I'd be like, oh my God. But don't get me started. Got a little excited there. But anyway, so one of the things you're talking about this weekend is the current state of the union. I typically ask you to do that and just give your opinion on what's happening macroeconomically and in the country and even worldwide sometimes. What you want to speak to that for a minute?
Sure. I'll give my lawyer disclaimer.
Okay. Yeah.
So not only is this not legal advice, I am not an economist.
Okay.
Nor do I play one on TV. However, I do follow 5 or 6 different economists regularly, as I know you do as well. And so what I try to do is put together a combination of what we're seeing, and then it's very interesting. And the cool thing is we have AI that allows us to pull a lot of information together, and then you see some where a lot of the economists are very
patterns.
Similar. Yeah, and doesn't mean that that's a guarantee. Look, we all know that we're sitting in an environment with higher interest rates, high cap rates, potential instability with respect to tariffs. That's just part of the process.
I just saw there could be that housing is really in trouble at this point. People are like, oh no, it's not. Well, yeah, it is. So
I agree with you. What was interesting, though, in all of the different forecasts is everybody is very bullish on the central part of the United States. The Midwest is doing well. Interesting. Texas is still doing well. Florida is still doing well. The storms in Florida haven't helped the costs.
Of course.
But that will even it out. It's not like it's unexpected in Florida.
Right.
But it certainly doesn't help.
Right.
What I found the most interesting was following inventory levels.
Okay.
And so like in Texas, where I'm from, and a lot of investments are in Texas, inventory levels are very high. So rents are stagnant to maybe climbing 2 to 3%, which 10 years ago, that was normal. 2%, 3% rent growth, that was normal. But we're coming off of times where you had 10, 15, 9, 7.
Tampa, 30.
Yeah.
30% rent growth in 1 year.
Yeah.
Insanity.
I remember when Tampa was number one in the country.
Right.
And that wasn't that long ago.
Right.
But what we're seeing on the inventory levels, and this is why we're very bullish on construction right now, is Q3 of 2026 in DFW, in Houston, not Austin.
No new inventory.
No, because no one is starting.
Right.
So people have to pay attention. So you don't just look at, the cost of housing, blah, blah, blah. Where is the population going? We're still in, and I'm not bragging about DFW. It's a very hard market to get into, but we're still bringing in 120 to 150,000 people
San
net
Antonio as well.
each year.
Yeah.
San Antonio's slowed a little bit,
Right.
but Austin is the one that's really dropped off because it's become so expensive to live in Austin,
Right.
and there's a ton of inventory. So people are moving now to San Antonio. They can actually commute from San Antonio to Austin
Right.
and have a much better house and a much better affordability level.
Yeah, I've got 2 assets in San Antonio. I love that market.
I know that.
I mean, it's hurting a little bit right now, but I'm so bullish on it. There's so many people moving there, and they know it's coming.
Right.
You can see all the highway infrastructure and the $billion spent on the airport and everything else. And DFW as well. I've got assets there like you do.
Yeah, so San Antonio is the third largest city in Texas,
yeah,
and the most affordable.
Oh, no kidding.
Behind that would be El Paso.
Okay.
But moving to El Paso is a lot different than...
No, San Antonio is gorgeous.
Different market.
Right.
But yeah, so one of the things we're looking at, we're in an area, I didn't talk about this one with you, but it's up in Sherman, Texas. We've got 57 acres zoned for a lot of multi. We're doing it in phases across from a typical story, huge chip manufacturing plant, TI building a $30 billion plant right across the street from us.
Wow.
So that's exciting. But what's more exciting is looking at the city's forecast for inventory. They've got 8,500 to 25,000 people moving in over the next 2 years, and another 20,000 with all this growth that's coming into this small town that's 65,000 people right now.
Wow.
They're showing inventory in Q3 somewhere like excess inventory of 100 units, and then it just drops off.
Wow.
And so there's this huge deficit. Great for us because we're starting to break ground there. We're seeing some of the same stuff in Houston. So when we come online and into
you'll be in the
2027,
catbird seat.
yeah, it's great. But the problem we have with that is lenders and a lot of the equity, they look at today.
Yeah.
They literally
they
look
have
at
no
today.
foresight,
They should know
which
better.
shocks me,
Yes.
honestly, because they've been doing this for a long time. They've seen the dips in the valley,
Right.
the peaks and the valleys, and it's it's funny how they're like ostriches when shit happens, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, and so I think today there's going to be a report on inflation.
Okay.
And it's funny because I can look back 2 weeks ago, the markets are not pricing in any rate cuts for the next year. I can't remember, there was a number that came out. Yesterday, there's a 65% chance that there's going to be a rate cut in July. How do you go in 2 weeks from no rate cut to maybe a rate cut in July? So it does make it difficult, and I get it, for savvy investors, potentially lenders, to not really know what's going on.
Sure.
Like on the car wash type product that's cash flowing already, or the cash flows very quickly, that's a different type of lender. You get conventional lenders that love that.
Right.
Why? Because they get deposits. It's all about deposits.
Right.
With them.
So you're talking about a local bank.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah. Local or regional banks.
Those same with senior housing. You can use local banks as well.
See, and I'm not exactly sure what type of senior housing. We were looking at like memory care.
Right.
Right pre-COVID, and I had some partners. I think I may have told you this. we mapped it out, had PPMs, we had processes
thank God
in
you
place.
didn't do it then.
Well, we were about to pull the trigger, and then all the news about what was going on in New Jersey, where these senior living facilities, people were dying, and like even if we wanted to do it,
you couldn't.
We couldn't raise a dime with that
Couldn't raise
media.
a dime, but I got to tell you, it's a good thing because a lot of ALFs and memory care went down the tubes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that are empty right now, so there's opportunity there. It's something I'm very excited about. I don't know if you knew this, but I got my ALF administrator's license here in Florida, 15 years ago. I did a 3-day. I believe in senior housing. I love the elderly, and I got the domain name Affordable Senior Housing, and I started putting a team together, spent quite a bit of money on it, and then 08 hit, and I was done, and I backed out, and had to go through all that.
If you do the model, we had looked at the model of actually building houses that could house.
No.
So you go through
Gene Garino's model, where you do residential
so
assisted
we
living.
We looked into that. That's what we did. We went to we attended it and went to that.
Me too.
Rest his soul. But,
exactly. Yeah.
But we looked at that, and it was what I found interesting, because we've got software, and I'm very, very data driven.
Right.
Every single little town in DFW had completely different requirements as far as density.
Yeah.
And
how many people you could put in one of these houses.
Right.
But there's what we learned is there's federal laws about that.
Yes.
But you don't want to take on the county. It's just life's too short for a small little facility. What we're talking about here, guys, is where you take a house and you turn it into an assisted living facility. There was a guy that we were both friends with that passed from COVID, actually. His name was Gene Garino. And it's really called a residential senior housing is what they called it. And I went to his 3-day course with my ex-partner, and was very seriously considering it and didn't pull the trigger on it. But it's a unique model.
It's hard to not get excited about something like in some of the areas of Dallas we looked at, where they're paying $8,500 a bed a month.
Yeah, per month.
And you, in theory, could double up 2 beds in a room, and you charge only $6,000 per bed, but you've got 8 rooms.
Right.
And it's legal, and so it's
hard not to get excited about the numbers, for sure.
Yeah, it's in theory a cash cow, but then the medical that you've got to have that's available, the round-the-clock
care.
The
liability.
Yes.
Nobody wants anything to happen to grandma, and none of us do. And I will tell you, like this, we're looking at senior housing right now. I'm very, very excited about it, actually. And the whole thing lives or dies by the quality of the operator.
Yeah.
And so we spent time interviewing an operator that we really liked a couple of weeks ago that we'll likely go with. But it all lives or dies by the operator. Same with multifamily. It all lives or dies by the quality of the team you have on site, and much more than even the management company. I learned this when I took over these 23 assets my partner ran into the ground. That it really was. We had one of the largest management companies in the country that flat out sucked. But if we had a good on-site team, no problem.
Right.
They kicked ass. So
it makes or breaks the deal.
Yeah.
We're the same way in car washes, any type of business.
Right. Every business is nothing but systems and people. You get the right systems in place, which you usually have in the multifamily, but it's the people. If you have people that aren't willing to, have a horrible work ethic, or, they're not willing to roll up their sleeves and treat the property like their own, you're not going to do well. But
we had one more component to that. We call it PPSD.
Okay.
People, processes, systems, data.
Well,
you got to have the right people,
important.
the right processes, the systems are relevant if the data being put in by the people is not accurate.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
For
you
sure.
look at your report at the end of the month, and it says your occupancy is 96% because some leasing agent is putting in whatever numbers he or she wants to look good, and then you actually do a deep dive and it's 82%. That's a problem. So you don't just rely on the systems. You don't just rely on the data. All 4, we have a chart in our office.
No, that's cool.
All 4 rely
I
on
completely
each other.
agree with you. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it was great to see you, brother. And
You too.
Great to see the boss who's here. You can't see. She's in the background here, but his lovely wife, Kim. But anyway, we'll see you tonight at the cocktail reception for the Warriors, and we're going to have a kick-ass fun time this weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. And again, check Merrill out if you have any interest in learning, and getting some help. If you're serious about this business. Now, don't waste his time if you're just screwing around. If you've got a deal and you know what you're doing, then reach out to him, please. But anyway, see you on the next round.